We as citizens are entitled to know the circumstances and the reasons why a constitutional functionary would step down at this point in time just before the elections. I think it is important that he should inform why has he chosen to step down if the current elections have to go on, who will take all decisions and accountable to none. Supreme Court will now have to look at this particular legislation, which has become very imminent in view of the present circumstances, as you have only the Chief Election Commissioner. For my opinion, I would say Mr. Goyal occupied a constitutional post. He has resigned just on the eve of declaration of elections because our Lok Sabha has to go in for an election. 5th June is the last date when otherwise the Lok Sabha will stand dissolved. So if he resigns just on a penultimate day before announcement of elections, I think there has to be a transparency, and I think we as citizens are entitled to know the circumstances and the reasons why a constitutional functionary would step down at this point in time just before the elections, abdicating the functions that he was supposed to discharge. And they are very important functions in a free and a fair democratic country.
But what do you think likely weeks before 2024 general election?
I don't think the country knows the reasons. I think it is for him now to come forward because he was a constitutionally appointed person. It's a constitutional post, and therefore I think it is important that he should inform why has he chosen to step down. And I think this is really necessary because before the last election, Mr. Lavasa stepped down. And this time before this election, we have Mr. Goyal stepping down. So there is a need to have the transparency, to clear the air, and to know the reasons why they are resigning. Otherwise, we have no idea why they are resigning. We can only make assumptions, presumptions, we can speculate, we can have all kind of imaginations running wild, but I think all that is needed to be put to rest.
Because questions are being raised on Arun Goyal, the announcement of Lok Sabha election.
Yes.
So what is the rule of...
See, the issue that happens is that now what happens with the elections. So you have a contradiction that is happening apparently because in the judgment of the Supreme Court in SS Dhanova, they said very categorically that you must not repose such wide constitutional powers of conducting a free and fair election in only one person, that is the Chief Election Commissioner, who is accountable to none. So therefore it is necessary to have election commissioners to be there. But subsequently in session, the Supreme Court also said that election commission can be either a single member or can be multiple members. So I think the Supreme Court will now really have to take a call at this time that whether the current elections 2024 can be done by only one Chief Election Commissioner, which may be in the teeth of SS Dhanova, number one. Number two, so far as the amendment to the new legislation is concerned about appointment of election commissioners, which is that it can be done, the body which will aid and advise the President will comprise of the Prime Minister, a cabinet minister and a leader of the opposition. Now that is also in the teeth of Anup judgment of 2023 because clearly it is a ratio of 2:1. That is 2 from the ruling party. Cabinet minister is obviously going to go with whatever the Prime Minister has to say, and so far as the opposition is concerned, there is only one, either it's a leader of the opposition or leader of the largest party. The Chief Justice who was recommended to be the member of that particular committee has been now taken out by this legislation. And this is a subject matter of challenge before the Supreme Court. Although no stay has been granted, but I think Supreme Court will now have to look at this particular legislation, which has become very imminent in view of the present circumstances, as you have only the Chief Election Commissioner, if the current elections have to go on, who will take all decisions and accountable to none.
You consider former legal, former advisor of former advisor of Election Commission of India. What is the Article 324?
Article 324 is primarily on the Election Commission. How Election Commission has to be also appointed, and the election commissioners. What does Election Commission comprise of? It is the Chief Election Commissioner as well as the election commissioners who may be appointed by the President, who will carry out under whose superintendence, control and supervision the elections in this country are to be carried out. And I was the standing counsel. I was not the legal advisor, but I was the standing counsel for Election Commission at the Supreme Court.